Let's install FreeIPA to CentOS server. FreeIPA runs directory services, so we can have users log into a Linux domain from anywhere, including Linux systems. I'm going to be installing the FreeIPA server to this CentOS server virtual machine that I'm running on KVM. So let's boot him up now, and we'll go full screen on here. And let's log in. I'm going to be working as root, so I'll log in as the root account. There we go. And I want to do some checking on this system, so I'm going to run an nmcli, and we see that the IP address that this server is using is 10.0.2.63. The DNS server it's reporting to is 10.0.2.1. Now, when we're done with the FreeIPA installation, we're going to actually use this system as a DNS forwarder over toward 10.0.2.1. Let's see if we can connect out to the internet with this system. And we can, so that's good. And one of the things I want to do is change the host name. If I do a host name CTL, we can see that the static host name is CentOS 9 server. But we need a fully qualified domain name for this FreeIPA system to work properly. So we need to add on a domain name onto the end of the host name. I'm going to be using example.local for this. So I'll run another hostname CTL with the hostname option, and we'll say CentOS-9-server.example.local. That's what we want here. Looks good. Press enter, and that should take effect if we run another hostname CTL. It does show that on the screen now. Now, another thing I like to do as a backup is I like to add that information to my hosts file. So I'm going to do that now, and I usually use Vim as my editor. So vim/etc/hosts. We'll go in there now, go into insert mode, and add in the IP address, the fully qualified domain name, and the host name for this system. That's going to be 10.0.2.63. Tab over once, and then it's CentOS-9-server.example.local. And then tab one more time and just do the host name, CentOS-9-server. Good. That looks like what I want. Just checking it. And get out of insert mode, save and quit, and we should be good. So now we can go ahead and do the installation of FreeIPA. We're going to do a DNF install FreeIPA-server, and if you want, you can also add the DNS component. It's not necessary if you're running a separate DNS server, but I will run the DNS server here as well. So we'll also do -DNS. So press enter for that. And it gives a whole list of stuff that we can install. So I'm going to say yes for this. It's going to download everything and install it. And that's going to take a couple minutes, so we'll just fast forward through that now. And the installation is complete. Looks good, no errors. We can check a couple things here though. And first we can do an IPA --version to make sure that it did in fact take properly, and we get no errors when we run the IPA command. And we see the version here, so that is good. At this point, we can go through with the configuration of IPA. To do that, we're going to run an IPA-server-install command. Now it says install, but really it's more of a configuration of the IPA server. And then you can add options. I'm going to add --setup-DNS because I want DNS installed as well, and --auto-reverse so that it will set up reverse lookup for DNS automatically for us. So that's it. That's going to be the command. We'll press enter for that. And it shows you that it's going to do a lot of things. When you install FreeIPA, you're running a domain, and it requires a lot of components, including a certificate authority, a time server, a directory server, a Kerberos key distribution center, in this case, bind for DNS, an Apache web server, and so on and so on. And all these things have to work together. So it's a pretty complex installation. But we should be able to do it here. Let's see if we can get through it with no errors. So first, server host name It sees the fully qualified domain name that I chose, and that's what I want. If what I want is listed in square brackets, then that's what we're going to use. And then we can just press enter for those defaults. So I'll press enter for that. And it says skipping DNS resolution. Please confirm the domain name, example.local. Yes, that's what I want to use. And then it creates a realm for Kerberos security authentication, which is the same name, uppercase. That's what I want. Press enter. And then we're going to put in some passwords. First, we need the directory manager password. So I'll apply that now and confirm it. And then we need an IPA admin password. That's going to be the admin that creates user accounts and computer accounts and everything else. So we'll type in a password for that and confirm it. Okay, checking DNS domain example.local. Good. Do you want to configure DNS forwarders? Yes, I do. So we'll press enter for that. And it sees my DNS server that I report to right now, 10.0.2.1. That's going to be working as the forwarder. So this system will run DNS in the form of bind, and it'll forward to 10.0.2.1, which is actually the gateway within my virtualization system that will forward out to the internet for all clients and for this system. So I'm going to say yes for this, press enter. And if you want any additional ones, you can add those. I'm just going to press enter to skip. Okay, now it always needs a NetBIOS name as well, which is just the same name as the domain name without the extension. That's what we want. We'll press enter, example. Do you want to configure NTP? No, I'm not going to be using that right now. We're going to use regular crony, so we'll press enter for that. And then we get all the information for this system. So you can see the host name, CentOS9 server.example.local at 10.0.2.63, the domain name, the realm name, the certificate information, forwarders, we're going to forward out to 10.0.2.1, and a reverse zone that's built in automatically, which is all that information in reverse for going from IP to name. Okay, so I do want this. I'm going to type yes to configure the system with these values. So I'll press enter now. And that's going to start up the process. So it's going to go through the whole process of time synchronization. Then it's going to get into any SE Linux labeling that's necessary because we're running CentOS, and by default it is running SE Linux. And then it's going to get into the directory server installation. And you can see that now, dir srv is the directory server. Then it's going to continue on with all the other components that we talked about and build all of those into this server. We'll fast forward through all of that now. Awesome. The installation finished properly. No errors. You may have noticed that there was a lot of components installed. Not only all of the FreeIPA server components, but also the FreeIPA client that was installed so that this CentOS server can be a client of the domain as well as running the domain, right? And so when we run this within CentOS, it's known as CentOS Identity Management. But FreeIPA is the name that comes from the original software from the makers of Fedora, right? And I always say CentOS, but you might say CentOS as well. So Granada, whatever you like. Either way is good. Now, when setup completes, it tells you a couple things you want to do. One, you want to make sure that you have specific network ports open on your firewall so that clients can connect to this domain. And two, you can get tickets with the kinit admin or the kinit admin command, which we'll do. Also, you want to back up your certificates that are stored in the root directory. So I'll do all that stuff now. So first, we'll do an mkdir and make a directory. I'll just call this backup, and we'll copy that certificate file, which is within root, and it's called cacert.p12, and we'll put that into backup. Okay, that should have created that backup for us, and it did. Good. We'll use the kinit admin command in just a little bit, but first I want to set up that firewall. So let's go ahead and do that now. Let's take a look first of all and see what's running. I believe that Firewall D is running on here by default. So we'll do a systemctl status on Firewall D. And indeed, it is running. It's active and running and enabled. So that's what's working here. And so let's take a look at it. Let's do a firewall-cmd and take a look with a --list-ports. Okay, no ports open right now, but let's do a services on that. Okay, and we see the standard services that are open for a typical CentOS installation. But I want to add a bunch more ports as was shown there. So I'm going to do that now. We'll do that with the firewall-cmd command, --add-port, and we'll say equals, open curly braces because I'm going to add a bunch of ports. And so we'll do 80, 443, 389, 636, 88, 464, 53. Those are all the ports I need to open here. Close the curly braces, and we'll say /TCP because these are all TCP ports that we need to add. And we'll do a --permanent so that they stay open if we restart the server. So this is persistence right here. Let's see if the command is correct. Looks good. Success. We'll do the same thing for the UDP ports we need to open. And that's going to be 88, 464, 53, and 123. Close the curly braces, /UDP. And again, --permanent. Press enter. Success. Good. And we need to reload the firewall. So we'll do that now with the firewall-cmd, --reload. Success. Let's check what ports are open now. Now, if we do a list services, we see the same services as before, but we added other items by port number. List that, and we see all those ports are open. Now, normally I would restart the server, but you don't even need to with this advanced software. You don't actually need to restart the server, but it may be a good idea for you to do that. In addition, normally you want to update the system before you start the whole process. I didn't show that, but that's generally a good rule of thumb and a best practice. Okay, so last thing here, we're going to do a kinit for the admin account, and we need to type in the password for our IPA admin account. That gives us a ticket and the ability to start doing things within the FreeIPA server. And so the whole point of this FreeIPA server is so that other systems can connect and log into the server and collectively use that server, and you can centralize your user accounts and computer accounts and so forth. And so I want to create a user account and just make sure that this works, and we'll connect from a Fedora client and get that to function as well. So to create a user account, we're going to use the IPA command. Everything is the IPA command here. And we'll do a user-add. And I'm going to state that this user will be called dpro. And we'll type --password, so it'll ask us for a password. We'll also use the option --home dir. And so that'll create a home directory for this user wherever they log into. And that's going to equal /home/dpro. I'll also specify the shell that they're going to use. There's all kinds of options here. I'm going to specify the bash shell, and that'll be it. We'll go with this. And so we'll press enter for this. And it asks for a first name. We'll say Dave. Last name, Pro. Press enter for that. And we'll type in the password for this account. And verify it. Good. It creates the new account. And so it creates an account dpro@example.local. And it's a member by default of IPA users. Awesome. So now we can connect from a remote system, become a member of the domain, and log in as this new user once we add it. So let's show that on a Fedora client. Okay, so here's our Fedora client, another virtual machine I have running in KVM. I'm going to boot that up now and go full screen on that. So Fedora is going to connect to CentOS. Fedora is the client, CentOS is the server. And I'm going to log in as user, which is the built-in regular account for this Fedora system. And the user account is a member of Wheel, so it has sudo permissions. I'm going to open up a terminal right now, and we'll get to work. So the first thing I want to do is take a look here. If I do an nmcli, I can see that the IP address of this system is 10.0.2.64. The CentOS server is .63. This client is .64. So that's okay, but we're going to have to change our DNS configuration at some point. Now, the other thing I want to check is the hostname. The hostname we're using right now is FedWS39. As with the CentOS system, I want to have a fully qualified domain name. So I'm going to modify that now. We'll do a host name and change it to fed-ws-39.example.local. Good. That's what we want. Now, if we do that hostname CTL again, we'll see that fully qualified domain name, which is on the same domain as the FreeIPA server. Now, a couple things. Can we connect to the internet? Yes. And can we ping the CentOS system? And the answer is yes. Very good. Now we can go ahead and install the FreeIPA client software to this Fedora client. So we'll do that with sudo powers. And so we'll do a sudo dnf install, and it's going to be FreeIPA-clients. We'll press enter for that. Type in our password for sudo, and that'll go through the install for us. And we'll say yes, and we'll let that go through the installation and speed through it. And it's done, so a lot faster than downloading and installing with the CentOS system, because this is just the client side. So at this point now, first of all, you could have also enabled DNS updates if you wanted to. You could have done a --enable -DNS updates if necessary. I don't need to do that here, and that's going to increase the complexity of the installation. So I'm going to leave that off for now. This is going to be fine. We're going to have DNS working just fine on this system. And the next thing we need to do is point this client to the CentOS server by way of DNS. So once again, if we do an nmcli here, we'll see we have two DNS servers we're reporting to for name resolution. This is Google, and this is the DNS forwarder within my virtualization system. I'm going to change that now on this system. We're going to do an nmcli connection modify on the wired connection for this system. And the argument is IPv4.dns, and we'll change that to 10.0.2.63. That is the CentOS system. So we'll press enter for that, and then we'll do an nmcli connection up on wired connection 1. Check it with an nmcli, and now we see indeed 10.0.2.63. And because we changed our fully qualified domain name, we see example.local here. We're getting to be in good shape. Now, you may say, well, can I connect to the internet anymore? You should be able to, and we can test that with the pingexample.com, and we are getting replies from the internet. The internet is there. Very good. So this is the CentOS server, which now with FreeIPA and bind DNS installed as a resolver is actually forwarding our requests. So instead of connecting to a DNS server on my network or out on the internet, I'm using the forwarder within that CentOS FreeIPA software, because that's running the bind DNS server. So awesome stuff. So we are connected, we are good. All we have to do is the configuration of the FreeIPA client. We installed it, now we just need to configure it. So we're going to do an IPA-client-install. Now again, it says install, but really this is the configuration of the already installed software. So IPA-client-install, and this time I am going to enable DNS updates. So a --enable DNS updates. I'm also going to set it up so that we can make home directories here for our new users. That's a --mk home dir. And that should be it. We'll press enter for that, and it should, and my apologies. Got to run that with sudo, because you have to run this as an administrator. You can't get any type of domain configuration running or connect to a domain unless you are a super user. So we add the sudo command, and it should locate and does locate the CentOS system. It says discovery was successful. Good. Do we want to use NTP servers? No, we're not doing that for this particular install. So I'll just press enter. And look, it says this is our client host name. We know that. But the domain that we're connecting to is example.local. The Kerberos realm for that, example.local in uppercase. And the IPA server that's out there is this. Yes, that's what we set up. So that is indeed what we want. We're going to type yes for this. And I always leave it as no as a default, just in case you made a mistake. So you have to explicitly type yes to actually join this client to the FreeIPA domain, which again is really known as CentOS Identity Management at this point. We'll press enter. That's going to do some synchronization and get everything set up for us. Okay, now we have to specify the user authorized to enroll computers. We could put in admin because we set up that account, or I could just use root and type in the password. So either one, that's going to work. Generally in the field, I would use the admin account that I created to set up that ticket for. But we'll just do root here, and that's going to configure everything, including DNS. And we'll just speed through that. Great. The IPA client install command was successful. No errors just yet, which is super cool. Now, normally when I do something like this on a client, I would reboot the system. So I'm going to do that right now. So we'll reboot the Fedora client. Again, this is all virtual machines running as a NAT network within my KVM virtualization system. If you're running Linux and you want to run a powerful virtualization system, consider KVM. It's super fast and super powerful. And we're rebooted. Log in as user again. That's just our regular account because we don't have an account to connect to on the domain yet. We created it on the domain, but we don't have one here yet. So let's actually do this from the GUI. We'll go to our user menu here. We'll go to our sprocket for settings. We'll go down to users. You'll see the one user we have here just called user. To add users, we have to unlock the ability to do that, and we have to have sudo powers here. So I'll type in my password. This account does have sudo powers or administrative powers. So I'm going to go and add a user now. And you have the ability here to add standard or regular users in Linux, but we're going to scroll down and you'll see enterprise login. So enterprise login on a Linux client means connecting to a Microsoft domain or FreeIPA domain or something else LDAP based. So I'm going to click on that and it automatically knows we want example.local because it knows example.local is the DNS name that we search for automatically on this system. So it provides that for us automatically. And we just have to know the username and the password that we want to add to this system. Well, I added an account called dpro, and I'll type in the password that I had put in at the server. And let's click add. It looks out to the server and pretty quickly finds it. And here we go, DP Dave Pro. With a password. That's an enterprise user. It is now added to this system. So let's go ahead and log out of this system. We'll log out of the user account. And now you see Dave Pro. Let's log in as Dave Pro. We'll type in that password. Now it's going to ask you the first time you connect to change your password. So we have to type in the current password again and then select a new one. And that will get written to the IPA database. That takes a moment and we're in. So this is a new user account. I'm going to say no thanks to the GNOME stuff. And it looks good. Let's type in the terminal here. Awesome. And so look what we get. Now we're connected as dpro at fed-ws-39. We have a bash shell. We even have a home directory and all of the normal Linux directories within that home directory. And that was all created for us because FreeIPA allowed us to do so. But we're actually logged in now to the FreeIPA server as an enterprise user. So there you go. We set up the client side, but more importantly, we set up that server side on CentOS, and we created the user account that we could log in with from that remote system. And that's it for this video. Thanks for watching. Until next time.